Hi, I'm Dr. Pompa, and you've probably heard me, at least some of you, talk about true cellular detox and really what that means. Look, detoxification is probably, at least in the natural world of healthcare, probably the most popular term out there right now. But look, true detoxification, you've heard me say, has to occur at the cellular level. There's so many different cleanses out there right now, from colon cleanses, liver cleanse, this cleanse, foot baths, you name it. But ultimately, if you're going to get people well today, you've heard me say that you have to detox the cell. So actually, what does that mean? We're going to talk about that in this webcast. But I've got some good news. Some of you may be wondering what I have in my hand. Well, there is great news here, because we have released a product some months ago called the Intracellular Detox System. Most of you don't know it by that name, but there's two products that make up the Intracellular Detox System, which is True Detox, and it is True Cellular Detox. It's called Gcel and Bind. There's actually two products. Well, for the first time, and we're releasing this at the next seminar, in Sunshine Seminar, it is going to be in one box. So let's thank God for that, because it does make our lives easier. In this box, you will have your Gcel and your Bind, which makes up the name of the Intracellular Detox System. Well, that name alone kind of gives it away. So I do have a live audience today, so you'll see things going in and out of my live audience at times. But look, you've heard me talk about the 5 R's. The 5 R's gives us a roadmap to really how to fix a cell. The 5 R's of cellular healing and true cellular detox. Sometimes we leave off the detox part, but today that's the subject, is I want every one of you utilizing true cellular detox and intracellular detox in your practice. Well, when we look at the 5 R's, and I don't want to really give a whole lesson on it, but let's just briefly talk about it, because this product actually really is the only product that addresses somewhat all of the 5 R's. R number 1 is remove the source. When we talk about remove the source, of course, we could be talking about getting rid of someone's amalgam fillings, or getting them out of a moldy home, or away from certain pesticides or chemicals, but also removing the sources, removing what is bioaccumulated in the body or stockpiled over the years. Remember, it is the bioaccumulation of toxins that really is the problem. I always get this question, well, my husband has silver fillings, why isn't he sick? Well, look, I describe it this way. Number 1, genetically, we all have a different size bucket, right? So some of us have smaller buckets, some of us have bigger buckets. When your bucket overflows, that's when the symptoms start. Unfortunately, most of us that are watching this, by the time patients come into our office, their bucket has been overflowing off and on for years. They've already been on medications, and they've tried a lot of things. So we get them when the bucket has already been overflowed. What is our job really to getting people well? Our number 1, removing the source. We want to get rid of, or at least empty their bucket. Something I like to do is I like to take 2 glasses of water. You can do this at one of your seminars, and fill one halfway full and fill one really close to the edge. And then you kind of shake them. Well, which one's going to start flooding over? Well, the more full one. See, these are the patients that we're treating, right? How do we get them well? We got to empty the bucket. That's true cellular detox. Look, you estimate 50 to 72 trillion cells in the body. Well, I look at every one of those cells as a little bucket. And when those cells start filling up, boy, we start triggering genes, driving inflammation, and a diminish of cellular function. If you don't fix the cell, you're never going to get a patient well today. Well, if you don't detox that cell, you're never going to downregulate inflammation. You're never going to change gene expression. You're never going to upregulate cellular function, and people aren't going to feel better. So really, that's what this webcast is about. How do you do that? Look, this one product, the Intracellular Detox System, is really the flagship or the core of cellular detox. So I said that we have the 5 R's, and R number 1 is, hey, we're going to empty people's buckets. Every cell, 72 trillion cells, we want to empty those. So we're going to talk about that today. But R number 2 is regenerating the cell membrane. You've seen me draw all the circles in the cell. Well, regenerating that membrane is very, very important, because inflammation of the membrane doesn't allow things to move in and out of the cell. Well, how does this product address R number 2? Well, it reduces inflammation, because as you're going to learn, this product raises intracellular glutathione, which has a dramatic effect on inflammation, and you're going to see that. R number 3 is cellular energy, restoring cellular energy. And we're going to find out in this cast how glutathione plays a really important part in cellular energy. R number 4 is reducing inflammation. Well, I already tipped you off to that one because by increasing intracellular glutathione, we're reducing inflammation. So it plays a role in that as well. And believe it or not, R number 5, restoring methylation at the cellular level, or reestablishing methylation actually. Well, how does this product affect that? We know now that when you raise glutathione levels, you also have an effect on methylation. And when you raise methylation, you have an effect on glutathione. These two pathways are very similar, very close to each other, and affect one another. So you can't affect one without the other. And you're going to see that as well. So this product really is the flagship product, such a core product that we're going to use. And before this webcast is over, I'm going to tell you how I use it in different situations. So hang in there all the way to the end, and I promise you're going to get that information. Oftentimes, though, I don't use it right away. And if I do use it in the first protocol, meaning the first month of a patient, oftentimes I use it at a very low dose because I don't want to detox a patient perhaps right away, but I do kind of want to bump up their glutathione. And again, if you don't know what glutathione is, you're going to know before the end of this talk, or at least how important it is, because I'm sure most of you do know. Okay, so what you're going to see during this webcast is something even more exciting than that. Because I actually have a live audience, I can actually take these and throw them at my audience members. And if you hear a scream, then perhaps then I hit one. Oh, there you heard a scream. So we're going to have a lot of fun as always, because you can learn at a higher level when you have fun for sure. Okay, so when we look at true cellular detox, okay, I'm going to draw them nice and big because I know you have to be able to see it. So that is in fact a cell. We're not making smiley faces today. This is a cell. This is the lipid bilayer of the membrane. When we talk about true cellular detox, we're talking about really, what's building up in the cell and affecting cellular function. What do we do about it? Well, look, the cell has a mechanism, if you will, to actually deal with the toxicity and the inflammation and the oxidative stress that toxins cause. And it's GSH, glutathione. So glutathione is really the key. When we look at new studies, and you're going to see, because on PubMed right now, there's 107,000 studies on glutathione. Look it up today. I just looked it up today. Well, Wednesday, it might be a little more, but as of this day, it was 107,156 studies on PubMed on glutathione. That's how incredibly important it is. I can't say I've read them all, but I have read a lot of them because I love these studies. But one of the things that you see always when you look at the studies on glutathione is its effect on the cell. Its effect on epigenetics, and meaning what your genes express, whether it's good things or bad things, diseases, or whether you're expressing youth in anti-aging. Glutathione plays a role in that. And when we look about down-regulating inflammation, and again, inflammation, you can't say that word, or you can't swing a cat. I don't want to say swing a cat because that could be mean, and we have an audience member who loves cats, but you can't swing a cat without hitting something to do with inflammation causing disease. Inflammation is at the root of most of the diseases that we're seeing in our offices. But when we speak of inflammation, we're actually speaking of it at the cellular level. Well, glutathione plays a major, major role in down-regulating or diminishing that inflammation of the cell. Well, look, we hear a lot about taking glutathione. We hear a lot about injecting glutathione. Matter of fact, I've done all of those things when I myself was sick, and I have obviously my own story. But glutathione did play a role in me getting well in many of the patients that I see. However, it's intracellular glutathione is the key, meaning the glutathione that's in the cell, not so much the glutathione out here. Now, does that mean that taking glutathione or injecting glutathione would be bad? No, it actually has a purpose. However, it's a more short-lived purpose, meaning that when people either take it or they inject it, there seems to be a month where they seem to do pretty good, and then there's a tapering off. Because see, even when you inject glutathione, it actually doesn't get inside the cell. Okay, and it doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier. When you take it, most of it is oxidized in the gut. However, I'm going to talk about a new glutathione that actually makes it past the gut and actually can cross into the cell. And it's a type of glutathione that we actually have in the Gcel portion of this product. So glutathione plays a major, major role in cellular health and detox, and it is the very thing that removes toxins from the cell. So it brings toxins out of the cell. So the intracellular glutathione really is what matters. The problem is this: how do you raise intracellular glutathione? How do you raise it? Because if we just can't take it, if what we take doesn't get in the cell and most of it oxidizes in the gut, or if we can't even inject it and get it into the cell, what do we do? Well, look, there's a lot of different pathways that really are responsible for building up intracellular glutathione. First of all, glutathione is a tripeptide. What that means is it's made up of 3 amino acids. It would be really important if we can get those 3 amino acids in the cell. In particular, there's one called NAC, NAC, or cysteine. But N-acetylcysteine is the active form that actually is the one that if you're diminished in, it can actually cause you to be diminished in glutathione. So if you lack N-acetylcysteine, it can actually be an absolute diminish on the glutathione itself. So it diminishes what we call the pool of glutathione. So obviously taking NAC is very important. However, a lot of people load up on cysteine or NAC, but they seem to not be able to get their glutathione levels up. See, because there's many other parts in this glutathione wheel where things can go wrong. So when we started developing a product to raise intracellular glutathione, we thought that through. And by the way, I took obviously a part in the production and the development of this product. It's my 3rd generation product. And I kind of want to explain how this really works together even before I get into some things more about glutathione. You know, but I had the opportunity on this 3rd really project of developing an intracellular detox product to work with Dr. Shane Morris, who is absolutely brilliant, and his team, Charlie in the lab and others. And we really took a product that was already proven to work, and we took it to the next level. And I kind of want to share some of those things with you to show you why this product works so well. Because there are so many ways that glutathione can drop in the cell and fail, and there's other ways to bring it up, not just giving something N-acetylcysteine. Matter of fact, we talk about raising the pool of glutathione, and we do that with the very things that raise it. But the problem is when glutathione starts to work and oxidize things and get used up because of toxins and inflammation, it starts to convert to something called an oxidized form, or GSSG, which is an oxidized form of glutathione. All you have to know is this. When it does that, that can escape the cell very easily. Once it leaves the cell, now you have to basically remake glutathione in the cell, and that takes a lot of energy to do that. Matter of fact, it takes a lot of ATP, valuable cellular energy, to make glutathione, and vice versa. You need glutathione to make ATP. So there's this very integral relationship between the two. But if you don't bring this oxidized form back to a usable form or reduced form quick enough, it escapes the cell, and then you have to rebuild again. That costs a lot of energy. So when we started building this product out, we took that into consideration. So we wanted to put certain things in the product that actually brought this around quickly enough to a reduced form, so we didn't have to rebuild it again. See how complicated it is? You know, if you didn't think of that pathway, just giving N-acetylcysteine, with so many products do out there to raise glutathione, it just simply won't work. You have to consider all of these factors. There are so many factors, like B12. We use 2 different forms of B12. Matter of fact, if I could just see Gcel here from my live audience, I want to show you some things. This is the part of the product, Gcel, that raises intracellular glutathione. And remember, the system is called, we shorten it and put IDS, Intracellular Detox System. That means it's the Gcel and the bind, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So the Gcel is what is responsible for raising intracellular glutathione. It says it right on the bottle. Well, when we look at some of the ingredients, and I know you can't see it at home, but I'm going to share it with you. This is a Mercedes. It's not a Chevy or a Pinto. I'm insulting somebody out there that has a Chevy. It's a good car. It's a Ferrari, let's say it that way, meaning that we spare no expense. We really put everything into every ingredient that goes in this product. If you know a little bit about ingredients, we use, for example, riboflavin 5-phosphate, about 4 times the amount of regular riboflavin. So we've taken every step. Matter of fact, when you look at the different B12s, we have 2. We have methylcobalamin and hydroxycobalamin. Why? Because when you look at these cycles, they're used differently within the cycles, and that's very important. Check other bottles, see if they did that. And also, when you look at even the type of selenium, we use selenomethionine because it's an active form of selenium, which is obviously way more expensive than the average selenium. Also, when you look at the folates in here, which plays a major role in both of the methylation pathways and the glutathione pathways, we use folate and an active form of folate, methyl tetrahydrofolate, which, by the way, many people don't have an enzyme to actually convert the folate into that active form. We put both that are used differently in different pathways. So, just some things to take note of when you understand really how this product was built. You know, something that I had learned years ago in the bodybuilding world is a way to get amino acids in the cell. So you remember, when a cell is inflamed, it's hard to move the good things in and the bad things out. And I talk about that quite often in R2 when we talk about regenerating the cell membrane. Well, you know, something that the bodybuilders did years ago is that they used specific sugars to actually bring amino acids in the cell. Remember, glutathione is a tripeptide, meaning it's made up of 3 amino acids. What if we can't get them in the cell? How are we going to raise that pool of usable glutathione? We're not going to be able to. So what we did is something that they did. We actually used something called ribose and some other things in here that actually deliver those 3 amino acids into the cell, and specifically N-acetylcysteine. So there's a couple other delivery systems in this product to do that. Because if we can't get it in the cell, again, the key is not just raising glutathione, it's raising intracellular glutathione. I hope you get that by now. But when we look at the ingredients in here, you know, every one of them are very, very specific for what they do. There's specific antioxidants that bring this oxidized form back into the reduced form, so we don't have to start over again in the cell. Very, very thought through. You know, it happens after years of developing a product, and after a while, you start to learn the little shortcuts and little tricks to make a product even better. You know what? And when you get to work with really brilliant biochemists, you end up with a product like this. So we're going to throw that one back into the audience. I'm actually going to, I just kind of want to abuse my audience a little bit more, so we're just going to keep throwing things. But now look, there's a problem. When you raise intracellular glutathione, what happens is the body can start moving toxins out. Well, where do they go? Glutathione most often brings toxins to the liver. And then through the liver, it binds up to bile, which attracts toxins. Remember, fat attracts toxins, bile attracts toxins, and then it's dumped where? It's into the gut, and hopefully it's released. Well, one of the things that I had learned, and I want to kind of tell you how this evolved. By the way, that's a liver, and I don't know if you could see it by there, but I'm drawing a liver, and I'm going to do it as dark as I can so you can see. And this is the gallbladder. So the liver, it goes to the liver, and then it ends up dumping the toxins in the bile complex into the intestines. Well, the problem is this. Bile is reabsorbed from the lower intestine. It's reabsorbed back to the liver. So bile is basically brought into the intestines, used for digestion, right, to break down fat. But remember, attached to the bile are many toxins, okay? Specifically, toxins like heavy metals and biotoxins. And what happens is down here, your body's meant to reabsorb bile so it doesn't have to remake it. So it's expensive to make, and it wants to reabsorb it. But what does it bring with it back to the liver? You guessed it, toxins. It's called auto-intoxication or retoxification. Well, I got to tell you the story of how I really came up with this idea. There's a brilliant guy named Dr. Richie Shoemaker, and he was treating biotoxic patients. What is that? That's a toxin produced by a living thing. Well, there was a lot of fish dying in the Pocomoke River at this time, and people in the Virginia, Maryland area were all getting sick. One of the symptoms was diarrhea, but they had chronic fatigue, joint pain, brain fog, and couldn't sleep. There were some other symptoms, but those were the top symptoms. Well, being a general practitioner, he was a researcher and a scientist, some of them were making their way into his office. And one of the things that they had was that I said that the diarrhea. So he gave them something called cholestyramine. Cholestyramine is actually used, well, it used to be more used to lower cholesterol. It's a binding agent that really doesn't leave the gut. It doesn't leave the intestines. It's a resin. It's very big. So it's just meant to stay in the intestines, and it pulls what? It pulls the bile complex, and in doing so would indirectly lower cholesterol. It's not really used anymore because it has a side effect that goes along with it, constipation. Well, when the patients came in, this doctor was giving them just the cholestyramine just to deal with the diarrhea. He didn't really know what was wrong with them. And the one woman came back some weeks later, and she said, "Thank you, doc, you fixed me." He's like, "Oh yeah, the diarrhea stopped." No, my brain fog stopped, my joint pain's gone, and she went through all these things that had gotten better. He wondered why. To make a long story short, he started doing it with other patients and realized what was happening. They were binding the bile complex, and he was actually removing the biotoxin, which they found out later was actually from the river. And there was upstream, they were using a pesticide that they were using for fungus or something in the orchard. There was a lot of fruit trees in that area, orchards. And anyway, so they were spraying it with this new fungicide. And it was running into the river, and it was killing a microorganism that another microorganism was eating. Well, when that one went away, this one morphed and became a meat eater and started killing the fish. It started producing a biotoxin, and people swimming were swallowing the water and they were getting sick. Well, he did something very brilliant. Knowing that mold produces a biotoxin, 5, 6 different molds, very dangerous molds like Stachybotrys and Aspergillus, they produce a nasty biotoxin that makes people very sick. Well, the same thing happens. The biotoxin ends up in the body. Your immune system ends up bringing it to the liver where these biotoxins are bound to bile, and they're dumped in the gut. Same thing that was happening with the biotoxin from the fish. And it ends up reabsorbing, and these patients never get well. Well, again, he started treating them with the cholestyramine, binding the biotoxin from the mold, and all of a sudden, he had a new treatment even for mold patients. Well, I got to thinking because I started wanting to say, well, if this is happening with those toxins, I bet you it's happening with a lot of other toxins. So I started searching for something natural that actually bind a biotoxin, and we found one super activated carbon that is able to bind a biotoxin, which is 400 to 1,000 angstroms, very small, very tight. Well, we found one carbon. Matter of fact, if you throw me the bind product here, let's bring the bind product from our listening live audience here, and we're going to see that. Imagine if I missed. We're taking chances here today. This is the second part of the product. This product called bind does just what that medication cholestyramine does. It sits in the gut, and most of it does not ever leave the gut, just like cholestyramine. But it sits in here, and it binds the toxins, so you don't what? So you don't reabsorb them. That's what the product does. See, because when you raise intracellular glutathione, you're going to force and bring toxins to the liver. They inevitably bind to the biocomplex and in your gut. And what does it do in your gut? Causes havoc, inflammation of the gut. We know it's the second brain. Now it's affecting hormones, serotonin levels, causing leaky gut. Now when you're eating things, it's driving more cellular inflammation. You see the problem? So we don't want to reabsorb the toxins. We want to bind them and take them here. And if I could draw you a really good toilet, I would, but I'm not so clever. So we're not going to draw a toilet, but that's where we want to put them. That's what this product does. So it's the combination of the two, raising glutathione at the cellular level, intracellular, not just taking glutathione, but intracellular glutathione. We do that by covering every pathway, every limiting rate we can think of. And again, that's not as much as my brilliance is the chemist and the biochemist. That's where they come in. But we do that successfully in the cell. We're pushing out toxins to the liver. We're binding them in the gut so you don't auto-intoxicate or reabsorb. That's the brilliance of this product. Now you may be asking yourself, okay, great, then what good is glutathione? Let me talk more about that, because this product is actually more than just a cellular detox product, and I hope you get that after I go through a couple slides. I got to say something else about the transition of this product before I go there. This product, we had a product in the past that we used with a very similar carbon. Well, in this product, we actually upgraded the carbon one level higher to a carbon that actually binds even smaller particles. So upgraded the carbon. But we also put something in it called humates. And by the way, the challenge was this with carbon and the humates. We couldn't find stuff that was clean enough. One thing I can say about systemic, and this is why when you look in my cabinets, that's what you see, is they test everything that walks in the door. Well, we tested the carbon that we were getting, and the carbon that was actually used in some of the past products, and it had high lead levels and other toxins that we didn't like. Matter of fact, I'm going to be honest, they were still in the considerably safe region. But Dr. Shane, myself, Dr. Jack Tips, we didn't like that region at all. We wanted something cleaner, and we did that. That's another reason why we actually upgraded the activated carbon. It's a pharmacy grade, and it is the finest carbon in the world that you can buy. Now, there was something else that we did. We added these humates, but again, we found that they were contaminated. So once again, it was a long, hard search to actually find these humates that actually bind heavy metals. Look, why the difference? Before we were only using carbon, but carbon does a great job of binding organic toxins, pesticides, if you kill off candida bacteria, anaerobic bacteria, perhaps from a root canal, man, it does a great job with that. But it doesn't do a great job with heavy metals, or what we call inorganic toxins? Well, the humates does. So it's the combination of using the humates and the heavy metal, the humates, I'm sorry, and the carbon that really make this product. There's not one like it on the planet. You know, Dr. Shane, you'll hear him talk about a test that they did in laboratory and how it binded up heavy metals. It's such a level, I know it amazed Charlie the chemist and Dr. Shane at how much it bind these inorganic toxins like heavy metals. But the fact that it binds organic toxins makes it, there's nothing like it on the planet. Well, I got to tell you one more story before I move on. I was in Africa, actually, Warren and myself, and if you don't know Warren, come to Sunshine Seminar, any of the seminars, you'll meet Warren, and I'm sure you'll get a kick out of Warren. But Warren and I were in Africa, and while we were there, we were introduced, we were in the bush at this point, 8 hours into the bush, and there was these massive trees. And we found out that they're thousands of years old, one of the oldest trees on the planet. They're called baobab trees. And they produce this fruit, if you will, this big. And when you crack it open, this little powdery white stuff around these seeds comes out, and the people make porridge out of it, and they eat them even like candy. Well, of course, the whole time there, we were addicted to these things. They were tart. They almost tasted like a lemon drop. And we ate these things constantly the time we were there. And Warren and I kept saying, gosh, I don't know if it's these things. We feel amazing. We actually tried to import this powder. And we actually even took some home. So we won't tell anyone that. But we took some home ourselves because we were addicted to this. Well, that baobab powder is in this product. What we found out later, and ironically enough, Dr. Shane in his research found out that this stuff is a major binding agent and binds toxins. So that is in this product. So how that came full circle, it's absolutely an amazing story because I knew that we were going to use it one day. And so this product is really special to me. And we use this for so many different things. We use it to bind up toxins, obviously. But we use it before people go into the dentist. Right before they go in, they take 4 of these pills. The moment they come out, they take 4 more. We take it typically at night because that's when your body releases a lot of the bile. But when we deal with mold patients, we actually take this 3 times a day, always away from food, always away from supplements, and always away from meds. Meds at least 2 hours. Thyroid medication, even further, 4 hours is best. Why? Because it binds it, right? Okay, so and that is on the label. But I have to tell you, there's multiple ways of doing it. And again, at the seminars, you're going to learn the different ways we do this. Even at the next seminar, the Sunshine Seminar, we're going to be discussing that. And again, I'm going to give you some tips towards the end here. So we're going to throw this back to our live audience, and hopefully it didn't hit them in the head or knock them out. But and of course, I just like doing this anyway. I'm actually going to go to the screen because I want to teach you a little bit about glutathione. So if we look over here to the screen, true cellular detox, the many roles of glutathione, DNA synthesis and repair, epigenetics, which you hear me talk about a lot, how our genes express themselves. Well, glutathione plays a role there in protecting the glutathione, in protecting the DNA so we don't get bad gene expression. I have to say this, and we have to come back to the camera. This is going to date this, but you know what? It's worth it. There was a famous actress, I'm not going to mention names, you can do your own homework, that she actually got her breasts removed because she had a gene called the BRCA1 gene. Well, look. The BRCA1 gene is a gene that predisposes you to breast cancer. And so to prevent breast cancer, and she's actually being held up as a hero, she actually removes her body parts. Imagine, right? Well, she's actually been looked at as a hero, and I've yet to see the other side of this story, which really bothers me. But Michael J. Fox said something a couple years ago on 2020. He said that, they asked him, they said, well, doesn't everyone in your family have this gene that makes you 4 times, even 10 times more susceptible to Parkinson's? He says, yeah, they all do. He says, but I was the only one to get it. One thing that I learned, he said, about this condition or about genetics is that genetics is the gun pointing to your head, but it takes environmental stressors or toxins to pull the trigger. Well, I don't know if this actress actually, agreed with Michael J. Fox because she thought that she was going to prevent breast cancer by removing body parts. She didn't have breast cancer, but she didn't understand epigenetics and the fact that genes can be turned on. Now, I have read some articles that talked about the fact that, just because they have this gene, really doesn't mean that you're going to get the condition. Matter of fact, I think way under 10% of breast cancers are actually from this gene anyway. And now we realize that because polymorphisms and different reasons in epigenetics, that just because you have it, it really doesn't mean anything. It's much more complicated than that. Matter of fact, here's the irony, that I've read now studies showing that some people with that very gene, actually it works for them and have a less chance of getting breast cancer. Imagine that. So you figure it out. But back to the slides, and I'll step off my soapbox now. But protein synthesis helps make hormones, amino acid transport, which means you need glutathione to move amino acids in the cell. Metabolism of toxins and carcinogens, detox. You need it to get rid of toxins from the cell. Your immune system needs glutathione. It prevents oxidative damage and inflammation. We taught you that already. It is the mother of all antioxidants, and you will see that more in a minute. It's needed to make ATP. I talked about this being a part of R number 3, and that is restoring cellular energy. Well, you need glutathione to make cellular energy, and that's ATP production. So we know that ATP production is limited by the amount of glutathione available. This is how I explain glutathione to patients, and this is very important. So back to the camera. Listen, the key is this. When you're showing someone the product and you start saying, and this raises intracellular glutathione, and that's not going to cut it. Now, if you say, hey, this is detox and cleanse, they get that. But you do have to make the point that, look, because there's a million cleanses on the market, that look, that's all fine and good. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with colon cleanses or any of those cleanses, but if you don't detox the cell, you're never going to get well. And this product raises something called glutathione, Mary, if I'm talking to the patient or my live audience. And what is that? This is how you talk to the patient. Back to the slide. It's the strongest antioxidant in the world, Mrs. Jones, because it's what your own body produces. It's in every cell of your body. And if the levels drop too much, your cell actually dies immediately if the glutathione levels drop. That's how important it is in your cell. Your cells can live longer without oxygen, water, or food than it can without glutathione. Glutathione, now this is where it really matters to them because this is something they understand, vitamin C and vitamin E. Glutathione is 5,000 times stronger than vitamin C or vitamin E. It is known as the master antioxidant. Vitamin C has 5 extra electrons to donate. That's how it works as an antioxidant. Vitamin E has 3 extra electrons. Glutathione has 1 million. Glutathione is how your cells get rid of toxins, Mrs. Jones. That's important. And glutathione is why you don't get cancer. Because if your glutathione levels drop, your cell becomes abnormal. See, that kind of language means something to your patient. So study that slide when you're trying to explain this product to somebody. Well, look at this slide, because glutathione and disease, it has been said that glutathione is the strongest antioxidant in the world. I already told you that. And its depletion is a component of every chronic disease or inflammatory condition, including aging. It's known as the defender of the cell. See, I'm building value. This is really neat. Low glutathione levels are linked to every one of those conditions you see on the screen. Look to the right. See that? Search PubMed and you will find it says 102,000. Well, guess what? That was several months ago. I looked today, and I already told you that, 107,156 studies on glutathione in relationship to those diseases. Look at that. Cancer, cataracts, hepatitis, infertility, mental disorders, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, thyroid conditions. Studies show your intracellular glutathione levels predict how long you will actually live. So you think that's important? Absolutely. Meaning that the lower your glutathione levels, the sooner you die. You think you're going to get your patient's attention? Look at this. When we look at glutathione levels in aging, PubMed search finds 2,800 research articles on glutathione's effect on aging alone. The more toxic we become, the faster we age, right? We know that. Glutathione levels drop, now this is very important, 10 to 15% per decade due to toxins, diet, stress, chronic infection, radiation, you name it. So we notice this drop. Now here's the thing, it's very important. So some people might argue that, well, if they drop 10 to 15% and that causes aging, or it's linked to aging in all the studies, then wait a minute, then maybe it's just something that happens with aging. But look what we find. Look at the next bullet. We found that some of the highest glutathione levels are found in the healthiest elderly population. So what does that tell you? That it's not something that just happens with aging. It's something that is being depleted because we live in a very toxic, stressful environment. So you think it's important to keep your glutathione levels up intracellularly? Yes, it is. It is considered the leading biomarker for aging, especially in the brain, due to its effect on oxidation and inflammation. How many brain people coming in with lack of memory, Alzheimer's, memory loss? You think they're concerned about that? According to the research, it's their #1 concern, is that their brain. Glutathione is linked to how well the brain ages and how well the brain works. I believe that the intracellular detox system, Gcel and Bind, specifically in this case, Gcel, is the multivitamin of the future. Look, most people aren't getting sicknesses and disease because they lack vitamins. I mean, name a few. I would argue vitamin D or vitamin K2, more even so than vitamin D. Iodine, so there's a handful. Magnesium, those are the major deficiencies. However, it's the drop of intracellular glutathione that's driving the epidemic of so many illnesses that we're seeing. You saw the studies right off of PubMed yourself. So it's the drop of glutathione. You want to stay healthier? Your patients want a multivitamin? You need to push them to the Gcel. Keeping your glutathione levels up, looking at the studies, that's more important than any vitamin. Would you agree? Especially when you look at the research, and I've looked at it. So you want to age slower, you want to protect your cells, you want to protect your brain, you keep your glutathione levels up. I do. So this is, to me, not just a detox product. This is, to me, the multivitamin of the future. Okay, let's go back to the slide. It's estimated that by the age of 50, there's a 50% decline in cognitive function, and glutathione levels are best protection against it. So glutathione changes gene expression for aging and disease. Matter of fact, they say glutathione is the genetic key to the secret of anti-aging. So what that's saying is this, that glutathione actually can turn on a gene that actually makes you live longer. The SIRT1 gene has a dramatic effect on it, and that's called the longevity gene. Glutathione turns off genes that actually cause you to age prematurely through inflammation and all the things I'm talking about. So glutathione can help your gene expression. Glutathione can also play a role in protecting that gene expression. So very important. Look at this, and this kind of backs my point, I think. You've seen that Time magazine article, at least if you watch some of my lectures. It says, your DNA, your destiny. Well, according to this, when I looked at this, I loved it because, basically what it's saying is it's showing that glutathione has a role in epigenetics in aging. And it says that glutathione can be decreased if any of the following are present. I took it right from the article. So if you have a gene, that MTHFR gene, that's a gene that you can't get active form of folate into the cell. That's why we put that form in the G cell. So if you have that gene, you could be depleted in glutathione. So we wanted to make sure we used an active form that actually works for those people. If you're deficient in B12, deficient in folate, B6, which can happen through digestive problems like celiac, mercury, Tylenol, what are these? Toxins deplete it, right? Low vitamin C status, increased oxidative stress. This is important. If glutathione is low, then it is possible that methylation may be compromised, and this can affect epigenetics. And that said it right in the article, so I love that. So look, if you look at this last slide, you'll notice that glutathione, when we raise glutathione, intracellular glutathione, those are the main things that has an effect on. It decreases inflammation because that affects all chronic disease. What does it do? It upregulates detox. So that affects the whole cell, the function, aging, epigenetics, when we detox the cell. So, that's really important because when the cell becomes toxic, now you start affecting the gene, and now you start expressing all of the diseases that you're susceptible to. Back to the camera, because I'm going to jump back on my soapbox. See, that's the thing that this actress needed to understand. It's not the gene, is it? If she did these things that we know and protected her DNA, protected her genome, and don't express it, then she wouldn't have to chop body parts off. Where does it end? Are we going to start chopping? Well, never mind. Let's go back to the slide. I better hop off the soapbox there. It reduces oxidative stress, which is the master antioxidant. That's one of the reasons why it slows aging. It prevents age-related diseases. It increases ATP. Obviously, that affects how your brain works. That affects how you age. that affects just how you feel. It changes gene expression we talked about, and obviously aging. So those are the main things that it does. You know, when we look at the cell, I'm going to draw it nice and big for you. When the toxins start to come in, this cell membrane becomes inflamed. This cell starts to become toxic, right? This is your nucleus. Here's your DNA. What happens is once this DNA starts getting affected by the toxins, now all of a sudden you start expressing conditions that you may not like and appreciate. Thyroid conditions, diabetes. You know, so few people, really are understanding how to turn off or change gene expression. This is one product that has an effect. Of course, we have other products like Moore's and even Vista, because we know now that it's this cell membrane that also really interacts with the environment and toxins and good things that actually tells the DNA what to express. So when we look at the 5 R's, you can't separate them. R number 1, we've got to remove the source. We've got to get the toxins out of the cell, or you're never going to change that gene expression. You're never going to downregulate the inflammation. R number 2 is we have to regenerate this cell membrane, because we know that plays a vital role in its communication with the DNA and what that's expressing. We know that the cell membrane, if it's inflamed, you can't get good stuff in and you can't get bad stuff out. And if you can't get the good stuff in, once again, your glutathione levels, the GSH, starts to go down, which means what? Inflammation goes up. Oh, and when that happens, guess what drops? ATP. Cellular energy drops. You see, this is the epidemic. This is why this is the multivitamin of the future. I really believe it. When you combined it with Bind, so you don't reabsorb the product, that's when you have something absolutely magical that works. Now, I said before I ended, I wanted to give you some clues on how I use it. In the beginning of treatment, I typically like to go half dose with it, because I want to just raise glutathione, just to help downregulate inflammation. I don't want to push detoxification until maybe month 2 or month 3, sometimes month 4. So I'll put them on maybe 1 or 2 pills a day and maybe 1 or 2 Bind before bed. And then once I want to start pushing the cell to detox, once I prepare their downstream pathways, their liver and their kidney, ultimately I often put people on L, liver, always in the first month, KS, kidney. I want to support these pathways. Maybe support their lymphatic system or some other areas that you feel are necessary. Put good bacteria. So, the new product, the MBC, the L-gut, we want to get that, close down those tight junctions. I want to prepare the pathways before I start pushing intracellular detox, right? And then maybe down the road, then I start bringing it up to 4 pills, where 2 pills twice a day, and then 4 pills before bed, or maybe 2 pills before bed, 2 in the morning. When I take things, I like to take it on the front side of Bind. So if I take another supplement, I said take it away from Bind, take it on the front side of Bind, because that way it's absorbed and gone, then you take the Bind. If you do take pills on the back side of Bind, take it out 2 hours after, because we don't want to bind those things away. So just a little hint, but giving it before bed, if someone takes things to sleep, tell them to take those first, wait a little bit, half hour to an hour is best, and then go ahead and take the Bind. So just a little tip there. But anyway, so this is how I typically use it, around cellular detox. Now, when I do heavy metal detox, I utilize something called DMSA, and we have many other webcasts on that, and I'll probably talk a little bit about it in some of the upcoming seminars. But what we do is I up the dose when I'm actually trying to pull. So what I call in the on cycle, I actually go 3 pills twice a day, and I'll do 3 Bind at night and 3 Bind in the morning. So I push, and then guess what I do? Then I drop the dose for 10 days. So for 4 days, I up the dose. And then for 10 days, I just do 2 pills a day of the Gcel, and I do 2 Bind at night. So I up it and then down it. So I cycle 4 days of the high dose, 4 days of the lower dose. But remember how I got there. I got there by preparing the detox pathways. One of the things that I have to share, and we're finishing up because I really wanted to keep it sweet and strong, and I just hit a live audience member in the feet, but that's okay. So, when I want to draw this big enough, the 5 R's, and I'm going to be discussing this at the next seminar, and I'm going to do a little promo for that, I promise. But the 5 R's, I went through them, right? Removing the source and regenerating the cell membrane, restoring cellular energy, reducing inflammation, and reestablishing methylation. Those are the 5 R's, right? That is always at the core of every protocol I give. So when I look at the basic formulas, what I call the core cellular formulas, I just kind of want to give you a rundown of that. And again, I'm going to go over this in more detail. But our number one, if I drew a 1 here, I would say it is the IDS, the Intracellular Detox System, which we have in a box now. That is our main product for that. That is our main product for our number 1, removing the source. Our number 2, and I ran out of room here, but is regenerating the cell membrane. That's Vista. That's the core formula for regenerating the cell membrane. And there's other products that we could use there for sure. Our number 3, we have 3 or 4 products that raise or restore cellular energy. But our core product is absolutely ENRG. And that's a very, very amazing formula that I absolutely love and take myself. And our number 4 is reducing inflammation. Look, we have Epic, which is a great formula. We have others, but ROX is the formula I typically start with. And lastly, the core formula for our number 5, reestablishing methylation, is Moore's. And again, there's other formulas we could add in there, but those are really what I call the core formulas around here. When I look at a patient, I always have them on 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 of those cellular core formulas. And again, just how I talked about how I use the intracellular detox system. That's my core. And then I start asking myself, why did the patient come in? Maybe they come in for a GI issue. Maybe they came in for a heart issue. Maybe they came in for an endocrine issue. So now I have them on 2, 3, 4 of these core cellular formulas. You have to today, because that's affecting the genome. That's affecting cellular function. This is where the epidemic is. So if you're not doing that in your practice, if you're not understanding cellular healing, you're missing it. So that's why that is always the core of every protocol. Every protocol you do, that should be the core. And then I ask the reason why they came in. And then I start putting them on maybe formulas for that. So then maybe I put them on HQ or H-Heart. Maybe I put them on GB, or maybe I put them on GA for the adrenals, and a couple of core formulas. See, so we ask ourselves, why did the patient come in? What are their symptoms? And maybe we test them. And whatever testing you do will determine what formulas out here you put them on. But this always has to be at the core of every one of your protocols. And I believe IDS, because it addresses all 5 R's, should be at the core. It should be in every practice. You know what? It's probably one of the few supplements, because we have the box now that says intracellular detox. I promise you this, it'll fly off your shelf just because people want detox today. But explain to them why it's special. Explain to them why this is the multivitamin of the future, and explain to them why this is just not a regular cleanse. It's cellular cleanse, and that's true detox. So I hope this helps. Can't wait to see you at the seminars.